So we're going to look at something a little different today. We're back looking at the genetic projects. This is a dun hen that is, she's half Old German Allen, half Uzbek. You'll remember her as a squab. Back in here we have a bronze pied and a sulfur saddle. They are frill Kazan crosses. And this cock, you may remember from an earlier video this year, I talked about having a shortage of stock cocks this year in these projects. So what to do? This guy is actually mated to both these hens right now. And they actually did this on their own. A lot of cock birds will naturally mate with two hens and they will raise youngsters together. I've got some rovers doing this, and I've got the Kazan frill doing this. I've got kings doing it, and this is a really good way to make the most of good stock cocks, or a shortage in this instance. And the sulfur hen, fortunately these actually laid the same day, and the sulfur hen, she's actually currently covering 4 eggs back there, and they will team up and they will feed and incubate all those eggs, and the cock will take turns and this dun hen will take turns. So they're actually sitting on 4 eggs and they'll raise them successfully. This is one way to really speed up your production off of a key cock bird and get more youngsters, which is actually the name of the game. This is the fastest way to make the best use of a good stock cock if you have one, and most people do have one. So he's made it to 2 hens, and we've actually got 2 different branches of the genetic project going on here. We have the frill Kazan cross with the toy bronze in the frill stencil in it going, and also for the first time here actually the one cross back into the Uzbek side for the double crest. So needless to say, she is on 4 eggs back there, and it's a pretty roomy pen. It's about 2 feet by 3 feet long, 3.5 feet, and this is plenty of room for them in its individual coop. And needless to say, we can should be able to determine whose youngsters are whose. You know, obviously they're all out of the cock, but you should be able to determine who the hen is of each one doing it this way. I would have preferred if the Uzbek would have laid over there, but she didn't. They decided to choose the same nest, and that's fine. So this is commonly known as the bull system or the polygamy system, and you can look a lot of different references up, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. This is actually the simplest way you can do it, is to breed a really dominant cock bird. And he really should be a dominant bird. You kind of get a henny cock bird. He won't quite do the job, but most of them will do the job, and they will raise fully capable of raising youngsters with 2 different hens, filling both eggs, helping feed them. And sometimes the hens will actually help raise each other's youngsters, and they'll kind of all get along like a nice little family. And you'll actually get, instead of 2 youngsters each round from this cockbird, you'll get 4. And that's the name of the game. So if you go out there on the internet and you want to know more about how to do this, and there's lots of different ways to do it, and you will find that most successful racing homer videos, or most breeders, or most successful rover breeders and a lot of other breeders, they will use this system. So if you look at polygamous breeding or bull system and pigeons, you'll find a lot of references to this. So this is kind of one of the things I'm doing to make up for the shortage. You know, it's easier to control 1 cock and 1 hen in an individual coop, but this is a really good way to speed up your matings and to keep producing as many of the key youngsters off of key birds as possible, which is the name of the game. And when you do that, you have a higher possibility of gradually improving your stock or progressing toward your goal, whatever it may be, whether it is top racing birds, or top show birds, or top rolling birds, or top endurance birds like in tipplers, or however it is you want to do it. And you can, needless to say, do this pretty easily. One big cage. There's other more complex ways you can do this, where there's some breeders do this and they give the cock bird his own cage, and they give the hens each their own cage, and he kind of has a trap door to go back and forth and fertilize the hens. But you can perfectly do it this way also, and it is the easiest way. They just need plenty of food and water, nest boxes, you know, plenty for both. And it's best to do it at the same time. You know, don't start with a pair and then introduce a second hen, because that's going to be a problem. You know, but sometimes if you put the two hens together first in the same pen, have them in there for, you know, a couple days on their own, and then add the cockbird, he'll actually usually very, very willingly mate with both hens. Sometimes you'll get a cockbird, like my other box here with the Kazan old German owl crosses. That cock, he tends to not help the second hens raise the youngsters, but they do plenty fine on their own. They sit the nest, feed their youngsters, and they raise them up, and he just kind of goes around and fertilizes those hens whenever they're receptive to mating. So this is a pretty good trick for those of you who really want to get the most out of your best cockbirds, or if you kind of have a shortage, it's kind of another way to get around it. So maybe more on this subject later. I'll maybe put a couple links in the bottom so you can read up on this subject and learn how to use it. But like I said, this is an easy way to do it. It's just a nice roomy cage. You don't want it too roomy, just a kind of a double individual pen. And the cock and the two hens, and you could actually put 3 hens in here, or 4 hens, and sometimes it depends on the cock. Some of them will do the job plenty good on multiple hens like that, and he will just kind of go around and feed them. Sometimes you even get the hens kind of actually mate up together, but the cock will fertilize the eggs and they'll raise their 4 eggs. But there's, needless to say, a lot of different ways to do it.